fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
It's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Here on SimSpeed TV this Tuesday night, we are once again live for the Pro Truck Showdown Season 4. We've had to take a week off, so we've only completed one round of the series so far, and there is now a drop round for every driver who has not been able to make it to the first round of the season. We're at the brilliant Twin Ring Motegi circuit in Japan for the second round of the championship. Big thanks to Hot Toddy's Heating Installs and Scumander Coffee Mug. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box is Cameron Dance, as always. Cam, we're back at Motegi once again, and the last couple of times we've raced here, the racing has been nothing short of exciting. Plenty of heavy braking zones around here, allowing for big sends up the inside.
Absolutely. It seems every time we come to this track and these things, it's always produced some really, really good rings and exciting racing. So really looking forward to seeing what tonight's going to be putting on and who's going to be taking out the round win.
Indeed, there is the relative location of Twin Ring Motegi from Japan's capital city of Tokyo. Bit up in the Japanese countryside in the mountains, built as a Honda test track in the late 1990s. Motegi's been famous for hosting MotoGP, among many other series, and the IndyCar series also raced here for a time on the now defunct oval. 4.8 kilometers, which in these pro trucks results in about a 2-minute and 10-second lap time on average, and a nice run to those opening turns there, with a very challenging final section too, which can certainly allow drivers to send one up the inside, trade spots, go for over-unders. You can do that at just about every corner of this place. We're in qualifying at the moment, and championship leader Brenton Hobson starting his lap. Hobson had a great run at Watkins Glen at round 1, and he leads the championship by 1 point over Justin Howe. So he's got the main goal on his mind to get good results once again, hopefully extend that championship lead.
Yeah, we've seen he's had some very, very good pace and is very, very strong at Watkins Glen as well for round 1. So he'll be hoping to try and come away with another solid bag of points at this round as well to hopefully extend that championship lead. But whether anybody else is going to be able to challenge Hobson is certainly going to be the big question of the night, with the fact that he's so strong.
Indeed. He topped the practice session on a 209.742. Ben Snell was the only driver who could get close to him there, within a tenth of that top lap time. We'll see how quickly he goes in qualifying through the sweeping turns 7 and 8. This medium speed S-bend, it's very difficult to negotiate in these trucks. You've got to be careful of the weight transfer through there. Keep a nice, consistent line going through the corners. These trucks, of course, have a very high center of gravity, and they run on dirt racing tires. They aren't dirt vehicles in general, but taking them to these big tarmac road courses produces fantastic action all the way through. It's a nice exit from that hairpin for Brenton Hobson, coming down the back straight for the start-finish line of the East Circuit here at Motegi. We are, of course, using the full layout here. And this braking zone right here at the bottom of the hill is one where we have seen plenty of big moves.
It has been a very, very renowned corner and section for seeing plenty of big moves and moves to try and excel your way up through the order as well. So expecting a few more of those to be taking place tonight. But Hobson coming down the front straight, and it's going to cross the line, and it's going to be a 2-minute 10.157. So far, provisional pole, and we'll wait for everybody else to see what they can do. Stevens goes to second with an 11.5. Was pipped by just now, and then Favell with a very impressive time for himself, P2 with a 10.4.
Yeah, excellent stuff there from Gregory Favell. Ryan Jones, meanwhile, setting a starting off a lap, or actually ending a lap. It seems that he got an off track on that run around the circuit, so that's an invalidated lap time, and he'll be starting a bit down the order. Jack Flood having a bit of fun out there in the talking machine, going for a big old drift, and I think he's not really interested in setting a competitive lap time here in the qualifying session. It's a pretty small field here tonight. 7 drivers have set times, and we've got 12 drivers in the server at the moment, but the racing is sure to be competitive. These trucks always providing some fantastic racing. It looks like that is everyone done on their qualifying runs. So we can take the opportunity now to go through the grid in the final few seconds of this qualifying session. It's Hobson and Favell on the front row, with Hobson taking pole by 0.3 of a second. A 2:10.481 was what Gregory Favell ended up setting. Justin Howe starting behind Brenton Hobson there, and wanting to keep himself in the championship fight. He starts alongside Damian Westbrook, with the number 3 of Daniel Stevens completing the top 5. Brian Trezise lines up in 6th. Dwayne Priest and Ben Snell are going to take up the 4th row. Ryan Jones starts alongside Jack Flood, with Todd Maxfield and Philip Howe on the 6th and final row here. So we've got about 1 minute and 30 seconds before the green flag flies, unless all drivers make it onto the grid pretty soon. But it's an interesting run to turn 1 here. The corners are a bit more open than most turn 1s we see at various circuits around the world, and they're nice and wide as well, Cam, so the field is going to be quite close through there.
Simply, and it's one of those corners as well that has multiple lines, so you're going to be able to see drivers trying to go around the outside or send it up the inside, and both drivers are more or less going to come out of the corner at the same point, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see who's going to do what with the starts. But the revs are rising and the lights are about to go out, and we are racing by the looks of it, and a very, very nice jump by Brenton Hobson.
Indeed, it was an excellent jump, meanwhile, from Daniel Stevens. He's starting to surge up on the back of Howe and Snell, as Howe and Favell, my apologies, as we go through turn 1. Plenty of side-by-side running there. Justin Howe getting on the throttle a bit earlier. He's got a great run down the back straight and going to go for a move. And oh no, Favell and Stevens making contact in the braking zone, and Favell gets collected there by Damian Westbrook and another driver there. And that's created a whole bunch of chaos in the midfield. Dwayne Priest getting a big old whack there as well. Goodness me, very chaotic start. Well, Stevens was trying to put himself there on the outside into the braking zone, but Favell just wasn't wanting to move over.
Yeah, at that point they just more or less locked wheels, and that was it, unfortunately, for Favell, who's had the most terrible start to this race so far and has got a very, very wounded truck at the moment, missing pretty much all panels but that around the driver's shell, but he's going to continue on to try and score some points at this point at least. But very, very nice start, I must admit, from Justin now to move into second, and a very nice one from Daniel Stevens to now end up in third as well.
Yes, indeed, but Daniel Stevens might have some retribution from race control hanging over his head for that contact with Favell as they make it into the hairpin for the first time. This first race is 5 laps in length, and then we've got 2 more races, 7 laps and 9 laps to finish off the night. And you can see Justin Howe there having little looks at Brenton Hobson down the straight, a little bit later on the brakes as well. Brenton Hobson, though, holding onto that lead very nicely as it's single file running all the way back through the field. There's a nice battle at the back with Philip Howe, Jack Flood and Brian Trezise all in a trio. We've got Ryan Jones pressuring Dwayne Priest as well, with Priest taking a slightly wide exit from the last turn, and that's going to set up a good move for Ryan Jones into the first turn here. Let's see how late they go on the brakes. Jones fires it in there, gets past Priest at the turn-in point, but Priest switches back and gets back up the inside for turn 2. Jones, though, with the outside run from turn 2, manages to get a nice run there with Jack Flood in the background, experiencing some technical issues, slight bit of contact there with Philip Howe as Priest gives Ryan Jones a big old bump coming into turn 3 there, but Jones has managed to just get away with it.
Yes, definitely has managed to get away with it and gain that position in the process as well. So P6 currently for Ryan Jones. Going to be trying to catch up with Damien Westbrook, who's not a million miles away as well. So we'll see whether Jones can gain another place and put himself inside at that top 5. But in front of the field, it's looking pretty close at the moment and evenly matched between Howe and Hobson, and then Stevens and Snell in their own little battle pack at the moment, just not quite able to keep up with the two at the front.
Yes, indeed. Howe and Hobson starting to jet away from the pack here. Stevens will want to pick up the pace if he wants to go at this. Hobson, unfortunately, running wide there in the left-hand hairpin, but Justin Howe not able to take advantage of it. So for the time being, the running order stays the same, but you can see how aggressive Howie is on the brakes. Just edging a little bit closer to Hobson every time Hobson goes to the middle of the road down the back straight. Just letting Justin Howe know I am not going to let this lead get away from me that easy. And another little look by Howe on Hobson. Bit of a lock-up as well as he avoids going into the back of the previous season's runner-up. Glenn Postlethwaite, of course, the reigning champion of the series, but he is not here tonight. So, Brenton Hobson, Justin Howe, Daniel Stevens and Ben Snell all together now once again. And this fight between the top 4 is certainly going to be fantastic. Ryan Jones, meanwhile, as Howe has another look at Hobson. Jones going up the inside now of Damien Westbrook into the first turn. So Ryan Jones is wasting no time getting up the field there and managing to shoulder Westbrook out of the way in the middle of the corners, getting a nice run and getting that move done. So Jones is really making up for his qualifying at the moment.
Yeah, he is on. Snell getting very, very crossed up as well, nearly running into the back of Daniel Stevens. Ryan Jones, though, is having trouble with Damien Westbrook at the moment. They're going to be side by side on the way through turn 4, and he's going to end up losing out to that position as well as Jones, but he's going to look back to the inside on the following corner on Westbrook, but again, not quite going to be close enough, and he's going to keep that position off Dwayne Priest in the process.
Yeah, Westbrook fired it back up the inside of Jones at turn 4, and Jones is back up the inside of Westbrook now for the sweeping right-hander. Trying to follow him through is Dwayne Priest, and big oversteer for Dwayne. As, wow, this is very deep on the brakes for Damien Westbrook. Priest ending up cutting the inside of the corner, getting very crossed up here. Goodness me, this battle pack, certainly something to behold. Jones going defensive against Westbrook for 5th and 6th place, and Jones has gone a bit too deep into the hairpin. That's allowed Westbrook up the inside on exit, but Jones will have the inside for the hairpin once again. Barely anything between these two trucks, and Westbrook wanting to hold on to that top 5 position massively, but that's a great exit from Ryan Jones, and I think he's gotten the gap over Westbrook that he needs, and that could potentially allow Dwayne Priest through at the next corner.
A nice little buffer now does Ryan Jones, but what's Dwayne Priest going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to get on by Westbrook? Doesn't look like he's going to be able to, and slots in behind, but it's all on at the front of the field though, is Justin Howe has lost the position to Daniel Stevens after running a little bit wide at the second to last corner at the end of the back straight, and is now going to be under attack from Ben Snell.
Well, that's given a massive gift to Brenton Hobson, as you'll see in the pits, Gregory Favell just at a standstill. He's retired from this one now. So Daniel Stevens up into 2nd place. And Justin Howe will want to waste no time at getting back by him and continuing his fight against Brenton Hobson. But if Hobbo is out there in clear air and these guys continue battling as they are, then it's going to be a pretty easy win for the number 88. Stevens taking a bit of a wider line on the exit of turn 4. Gets some very nice traction as well. We'll see how aggressive Justin Howe is in the braking zones here. Has a look down the straight, just moving around in the mirrors of Daniel Stevens. Let him know that he is there. And Stevens has gone a little deep in the hairpin. But doesn't look like Justin Howe has been able to take advantage of that. So Ben Snell right now is seeing this happening. He sees that Justin Howe has gotten a little bit crossed up and fallen back, and he might see that as a chance to get by himself. Big bumper-to-bumper contact coming through the S-bend, but no moves for the time being between our top four. Looks like Gregory Favell is actually back out on track, and he's a lap down on everyone else, but he is right with the likes of Philip Howe and Jack Flood at the back of the field as more bumper to bumper between second, third, and fourth here. And the draft comes into play once again down this back straight. But the gaps between the trucks just a little bit too big at the moment for any big moves to be made.
Yeah, that's it. There's a little bit of a bump from Justin Howe and Daniel Stevens, and both of them are going to run wide as a result, and that's going to allow Hobbo to get a even bigger gap, and Howe is certainly wanting to get back on it by into second and find a way on by Stevens, and it's looking like he's done that well by sitting up fast out of the final corner. He's going to have a run here down the front straight and on the way into turn number 1. Is he going to be able to brake as late enough? Well, late enough. We'll have to see what's going to happen. He gets on the brakes up the inside, and Snell following him on through as well. A little bit of a hit check from Snell on as he goes on by Stevens as well. So Stevens goes from second to fourth in one corner.
Well, there we go. That was excellent opportunistic move there from Ben Snell, following Justin Howe through on Daniel Stevens, and Stevens going a bit deep once again in the braking zone for turn 4, starting to fall off the back of these guys. Well, Justin Howe is back up into second, and he has some nice clear air ahead of him before Hobson, just over a second ahead at the moment. So we'll see if Howie can shake off the advances of Ben Snell, get himself back into the battle for the lead, but Hobson is looking pretty comfortable at the moment.
Certainly is, and with no pressure whatsoever, he just needs to pretty much cruise on home, especially with the fact that they're all battling so hard right behind him as well. So I don't think anyone's going to be challenging for the lead of this race at this stage at least, but we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. Favell's still out there and getting some critical points, but it's all on for second, third, and fourth now. Snell is trying his best to find a way on by Justin Howe, and Howe running a little bit wide there out of the corner as they head down towards the hairpin, and Snell's going to try around the outside at the hairpin as they come onto the start-finish straight of the east layout, and looking like he might have set the run up here quite nicely has been Snell as they head down the back straight. He's going to look to the outside as Howe goes defensive on the way down the straightaway. Is he going to be able to brake late enough? He tries his best to pull it up, and they're both going to get sideways out into the corner, and that's going to allow Ben Snell to get a little bit wide, and Stevens is going to try and have a go, but doesn't look like it's going to be job done there for Snell in the end. But Brenton Hobson is going to be coming away with a big grin on his face and a nice haul of points to start the night off.
Indeed he is, taking the win in race 1 as Brenton Hobson. Justin Howe managing to fend off Ben Snell. He was in danger of falling back to 4th, but you know, I reckon Ben Snell with one of the best runs in the field there. He started in 8th, remember, finishing 3rd. Ryan Jones completing the top 5 there, managing to hold off Damien Westbrook by just over a second himself. So there are the unofficial results for the first race of the night, with Westbrook taking 6th, Preece and Trezise finishing 7/10 apart, with Philip Howe coming home in 9th, Jack Flood rounding out the top 10, and Todd Maxfield coming home the last car. Oh, actually, no, Todd Maxfield not even taking to the grid there. So Gregory Favell is the last finisher of that first race. Time for race 2 then. We get 2 extra laps with this one, 7 laps with Brenton Hobson and Howe on the front row. Snell and Stevens taking up row 2 with Jones and Westbrook on row 3. And it's a great run for Ryan Jones as well. Remember, he started 9th in the first race, so he's getting himself in really nicely with the run here. The revs rise, and we are going to go away for race 2 of the Pro Truck Showdown here at Motegi. And it's not the best start from Brenton Hobson this time round. Justin Howe has managed to get the jump on him, and Ben Snell trying to follow him through there. Hobbo has to go a bit wide in turn 1, and Justin Howe straight lining the exit, has to back out of the throttle a little to keep the front end gripped up. But it's going to be a very tight race for this lead coming into turn 4. Hobbo switching to the outside, gets on the brakes a little bit earlier than Justin Howe. And Daniel Stevens going into the back of Ben Snell as there's a big crush At the back of the field, Dwayne Priest making his way ahead of Damien Westbrook. Gregory Favell, of course, looking for some redemption there after starting extremely well in race 1, but taken out by Daniel Stevens on the first lap. So Justin Howe now has made his way past Brenton Hobson, and in the lead that he has so desperately craved. Jones side by side, meanwhile, with Dwayne Priest, and Jones goes off the track into the gravel trap, gets crossed up, but bricks it back onto the tarmac in time for the braking zone for turn 7. Westbrook is going to try and force his way around as well, but just backs out of it once again. With Dwayne Priest now having cleared all of these drivers, big heavy brake applications into these hairpins. That's why I love racing here at Motegi. You have really big sends all through the field. Let's see if Jones can make his way back past Priest at the hairpin. No, he's not gone for it this time, but Damien Westbrook trying to sneak up the inside, gives a bit of rear end contact to Ryan Jones. Hasn't worked out for him though, and it's the big weave on the back straight here, with Hobson and Howe leading the way. Daniel Stevens having a slight look at Ben Snell just behind them, as well as Gregory Favell tries to force his way up the inside of Damien Westbrook. Westbrook locks up, would have compromised his mid-corner speed slightly, but Favell not able to take advantage of it. And Jones and Priest, have a look at that. Very close coming into the final couple of turns. There's a few 2x2 battle packs starting to form here.
Man, certainly there's a few of those that start to form throughout this field. You've got the front two at the moment of Hobson and Howe, and then you've got Snell and Stevens, and then you go back to Priest and Jones, and then just behind Westbrook and Favell starting to join in the little party that is going on in that mid-pack. So we'll see what Favell and Westbrook are going to be able to do as the two ahead of Jones and Priest side by side on the way down towards turn 3. Jones is going to try and hold his way around the outside. Westbrook fires it up the inside of Jones in the process, and he's going to force Jones to try and hold it around the outside of both corners. Jones runs wide onto the dirt, gets a little bit crossed up, and that's going to allow Westbrook to look to the outside and have a little bit of a run, a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact as well for good measure, and Jones looking like he's just going to hold on to that position, or as he gets very, very squirrely out of the corner there.
Indeed, it looks like he's done enough though to keep himself ahead of Westbrook. Remember Gregory Favell right there as well, looking to take advantage of this. Priest has just gapped Jones slightly, thanks to Jones and Westbrook getting involved with each other slightly. Oh, and it's on for the lead. Have a look at this. Ben Snell is right up there with Hobson and Howe. With Hobson getting up the inside of Howe on the hairpin. This is a great battle here for the top 3. Hobson trying to slot ahead of Snell, but there's a bit of overlap, and Snell's just going to sneak through with less than a truck width to spare. Let's see if he nails the exit out of the hairpin. Bit of contact between second and third, and oh no, it looks like there's been a bit of a crash there in the back. Dwayne Priest has found his way into the wall at the hairpin, and it looks like he ran wide in the hairpin, went for the late apex, and Ryan Jones just made rear-end contact with him.
Yeah, it looks like it was the case there, and his redressed position actually has Ryan Jones. So we'll grab a virtual racing school replay of what's gone on here, going into the hairpin, and Dwayne Priest looking like he's run a bit wide, and then Jones saw the gap open, but then it's closed, unfortunately, a little bit too quickly, and as a result, it's resulted in a contact, and Dwayne Priest finding the arm KO on the very, very inside. So not the ideal. Well,
pushed from behind as well.
This is true. Ryan Jones, of course, in the commentary box with us. He's hanging out here while he's racing. So yeah, there's plenty to consider in battles like that. Jones, of course, was getting very hounded from behind by the people chasing him. But Ben Snell has made his way into the lead of the race. Meanwhile, Justin Howe has fallen back into 4th. So Daniel Stevens promoted onto the podium here, and the battle continuing for the other positions behind, as Favell has made his way past Westbrook in the process as well. But the top 4 are going to be once again fighting very hard with each other in this race. We're on lap 3 of 7 right now, so time is rapidly running out for these drivers to consolidate their positions. Hobson versus Snell for the lead of the race. It looks like Hobbo trying his best here to get a good exit. Snell hanging the tail out, and Hobbo sneak up the inside once again into the hairpin. Snell has to delay his turn in to give him a bit of room. And they're going to be side by side on the way up to the hairpin once again. I mean, I say the hairpin an awful lot. The majority of the corners on this track are hairpins. Oh, contact between Hobson and Snell. Snell's been pushed a little wide, and Hobson then making his way into the lead, but only by half a truck length. So let's see. It's going to be the last of the late breakers coming into the hairpin. Very even between our top two, with Daniel Stephen just observing proceedings from behind in third place. Hobson, though, his line was compromised, and that almost allows Stevens a go up the inside. But Hobson just holding on to the position once again.
Yeah, only just holding on. Is the very, very key point of that is Stevens now looking very, very racy and behind, and they won't want to battle too much with Hobson and Snell. They're going to find themselves having to deal with Stevens and Howell as well, so we'll see what happens. And Hobson giving Snell a little bit of a hurry up as well on multiple occasions through the mid corner there with a few Morse code bumps.
Yep, just a couple. Ben Snell putting a wheel into the grass, trying to widen up the entry to turn 4 and holding on to the lead versus Hobbo 88. Gets a very nice exit out of turns 3 and 4 as well, so that's a nice gap that Ben Snell has at the moment. Will it be made up in short order by Brenton Hobson is the question. Hobbo has been the man to beat in these Pro Truck races for the last season and a bit. So if Snell can snatch a win here tonight, it'll certainly look very good on his form book. Daniel Stevens just behind, having his hands very full with Justin Howe. Bumper to bumper contact on the exit of turn 8. Into the hairpin, Stevens just running slightly wide of the curb. Howe, though, again, not able to take advantage and actually gets into the grass, trying to find a way past Stevens, who goes defensive into the hairpin. And have a look at this exit here from Justin Howe. He's going to straight line it as much as he can, try and get a bit of extra momentum. Does he have the run to make his way by at this next braking zone? Stevens moves to the middle of the road to try and cover him off, but Howe is already alongside and a bit later on the brakes for him. Locks the brakes, though, and loses grip, runs wide. Almost comes to a complete stop at the end of the corner, so that's given a free kick there to Daniel Stevens. He doesn't have to worry about Howe for at least a couple more laps.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't. It was a little bit too
Almost
deep on the brakes there for Justin Howe, and as a result had to really pull it up and has lost a lot of time in the process to that leading pack ahead of Stevens, Hobson and Snell. And Snell's got a little bit of a gap as well to Hobson in that last half a lap or so, and was starting to pull one as well currently. So possibly struggling with a little bit of grip at the moment is Hobson, but we'll have to see what's going to happen in the next 2 and a bit laps. Further back though for Val, Westbrook and Trezise, all very, very close to each other at the moment, fighting for the final few spots, the final spot inside the top 5. And Favel trying his best to pull away from Westbrook and not doing too bad of a job after where he started in this race as well. So looking like it's going to be not too bad of a recovery for him.
Yeah, definitely looks like it. After starting in 11th place here, searching for the top 5, and Westbrook very deep into the hairpin behind. There was slight contact on the back of Favel. But that battle, I think, is going to continue as a stalemate for quite some time. Brenton Hobson, his main aim is to try and catch back up to Ben Snell here. And looking at the wheel work, Hobson, of course, very smooth on the wheel. He's always been a driver that has had some incredibly smooth inputs, and he's learnt from the best in one of the best cars for it. Hobbo's been mostly active in the Australian touring cars, supercars, here on iRacing. It's where he has done most of his racing, and it's really lending itself well to his racing style in these trucks.
Yeah, it certainly is, with the fact that you have to be smooth and look after the tyres and also use enough power that you're not going to be spinning the wheels up, but also not too little. So he's using all of his experience to his advantage currently at the moment to keep on the tail of Ben Snell at the moment, setting up a move by the looks of it as well with how well he's been driving. Runs a little bit wide out of the final corner, but is all over the back of Ben Snell as they come down at the front strip. Probably not going to be close enough to get a move into turn one this time by, but certainly is going to be close enough to set one up in the not too distant future.
Penultimate lap then. Hobbo knows that time is running out here if he wants to get 2 from 2 in terms of victories tonight. And they've managed to completely drop Stevens and Howe now. It's quite the drive that we're seeing from our top two. Ben Snell, again with a really nice exit out of turn 4. And a truck length between himself and Hobson. That gap's not going to be made up in the braking zone unless Hobbo is incredibly confident on the brakes, which he usually is, but once again, you've got to realize that that these trucks can very easily get away from you in the braking zone, so you've got to be quite assertive and confident with your moves. Ben Snell taking a little bit of grass on the entry into turn 6 just to kick the rear end out, get himself online for the S's. Doing a very good job once again of keeping himself ahead of Brenton Hobson. We're almost about to come on to the final lap, and Hobbo is pushing as hard as he can in every braking zone, on every entry to every corner. Snell going for a slightly early turn in, making a V shape out of this corner, trying to cover off the advances of Hobbo 88. Doesn't look like Stevens and Howe are going to be coming together anytime soon, but Ryan Trezise has worked his way past Damien Westbrook, and Westbrook are going to try and come back at him here at the end of the straight. Westbrook very aggressive on the brakes tonight. See if he's done enough there. Doesn't look like it. Trezise just moving ahead of him, and that is Trezise then up into 6th place. Get a virtual racing school replay of when that move happened, as it is white flag for our leaders. It looks like Westbrook just running wide into the hairpin. Trezise, of course, behind him on the way in. Let's see what happened to Westbrook. It looks like just straight up going in a bit too deep, locked the brakes and just left the door wide open for the number 77. Let's take a look at our leaders then coming into turn 4. Hobson with a slight look on Ben Snell. And they are closer than they've been for some time. The move might happen this lap. We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. The prime opportunity is probably going to be the hairpin at the back end of the circuit, but Hobbo's going to look to the outside on the way down towards turn 5. Brakes much later than Ben Snell as well. Going to try and hang it around the outside, tail out in the process, but can't get the power down, unfortunately, so it's going to have to sit behind for a little bit longer, but I can see the move coming from quite some distance away with the way this race is going.
Indeed. Well, they've just got to make their way through the medium speed S-bends once again for the final of 7 times in this second race. Hobbo firing it straight to the inside in the braking zone, trying to make the route around the corner as short as he possibly can. And another brief look on Snell, moving around in the mirrors, trying to psych out your opponent. It's one of the oldest racing tactics in the book, and another bit of contact. Another little hurry up that Brenton Hobson gives to Ben Snell. But it's not going to be successful that time around. It seems to me that Snell has done enough here to go for the victory. Stevens in the background going defensive against Justin Howe, who fires it up the inside into the braking zone, and Howe unfortunately has gone too deep again, goes completely off the circuit, so that gives Daniel Stevens 3rd place for sure. For Ben Snell though, he's faced off the mother of all advances from Brenton Hobson, and is going to come home to take victory here in race 2 of the night. Fantastic performance from Ben Snell after a poor qualifying, making his way up to 3rd in race 1, took advantage of the poor start from Brenton Hobson and the battling between himself and Justin Howe to take home that win.
A very, very nice way to finish race 2 off, and a very, very solid drive to come away with the win. So be very, very happy with that. And there is your results. Ben Snell and Brenton Hobson coming away in first and second. Stevens rounds out the podium with Howe and Favell rounding out the top 5. Westbrook comes home in 6th after a last lap move by the looks of it on Brian Trezise. Ryan Jones in 8th. Dwayne Priest in 9th. Philip Powell rounds out the top 10. And then Jack Flood rounds out the field.
Indeed, he does. So Todd Maxfield has still not made an appearance here tonight. Hopefully, he can make it onto the grid for the final 9-lap race. But we're into the 5-minute warm-up between the second and third races here. It's time for us to briefly step aside here at SimSpeed TV. You're watching Pro Truck Showdown Season 4, presented by Scumander Coffee Mug and Hot Toddy's Heating Installs.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction, he's got everything outside both of them. Maloney! Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
This is very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no!
That's massive!
This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
You're watching the Pro Truck Showdown, Season 4, Round 2 from Twin Ring Motegi. If you're just joining us, I'm Reese Gardner, Cameron Dance alongside us in the commentary box here on SimSpeed TV. And Cam, it's been a nice couple of races so far tonight, with some very intense battling throughout this somewhat reduced but still competitive field.
Yeah, certainly. We've seen some really, really good battles so far for the lead and also the minor positions as well. So going to be interesting to see what race 3 is going to hold. Obviously, 2 extra laps from race 2, so a little bit more time to do battle and get themselves through the field as well if they're starting down the back.
Yes, indeed. We'll be looking for a couple of drivers to be moving forward here. I'm thinking about the likes of Ryan Jones, who, after redressing a move in the second race, finishing a bit down the field there, he's going to be starting in 8th place for the third race of the night. We're in the expression session right now. The warm-up between our second and third races. The checkered flag just flying, so everyone's going to have to hurry on back to the pits and get ready to go for the final 9-lapper around the magnificent 4.8 kilometer twin ring Motegi full road course here. And we are through into the session. Drivers immediately jumping onto the grid, which is headed up by Ben Snell and Brenton Hobson. Daniel Stevens and Justin Howe on the second row. Same finishing order as the race just run. Gregory Favell and Damien Westbrook start on row 3 with in 7th and 8th Brian Trezise and Ryan Jones. Dwayne Priest and Philip Howe on row 5. Jack Flood and Todd Maxfield are not in the session, so they won't be taken to the grid. The revs are already rising. Ben Snell starts from pole. We are away. That's a great start from Ben Snell, an even better start from Daniel Stevens and Justin Howe just behind Brenton Hobson. And it's contact between Hobson and Stevens coming into turn 1. Just a brief side-by-side brush and then a big old hurry up from Stevens on Hobbo. But Howe sneaking up the inside. Gregory Favell had to have a couple of goes there as he battled with Ryan Jones, and Jones weaving in the midst of Gregory Favell to the outside, but that's a big over-aggressive move from Damien Westbrook. Shoulders his way past Ryan Jones, and Westbrook has been doing that a lot tonight. And a big return serve from Ryan Jones is, oh, there we go. They both managed to keep going, but Philip Howe getting his nose in as well.
You certainly wouldn't have liked to have that happen for either of those drivers, but they managed to keep on going, and Howe's going to try get back up the inside of Ryan Jones. Jones can end up on the grass as a result of a little bit of contact there, but they've continued on their way. But at the front of the field, though, Snell and Hobson have absolutely checked out from everybody else, and Stevens, Howe and Favell are all doing battle just in behind.
Indeed they are. It's an incredibly tight battle for third on back. Howe very late on the brakes. Ryan Jones has gotten a big buffeting here on the first lap. Brian Trezise was making contact with him just a couple of corners before, but now hopefully they'll settle down as Ben Snell goes on the defense from Brenton Hobson. As you say, Cam, the two leaders checking out from everyone else at the moment, but if they continue to battle side by side, then that's going to allow Daniel Stevens to jet up to the back. Hobbo's got a great run down the straight and late on the brakes, moves ahead of Ben Snell before they get to the turn-in point. Hobbo goes a bit deep, has to gather it up, and Snell gets a good exit, but they're going to be side by side through the last couple of turns here. Daniel Stevens, uncompromised, is going to get right in it here for the battle for the lead. Snell puts the power down and moves ahead of Hobson. He's still going to have to go defensive coming into the first turn here.
Yeah, he's going to have to go defensive. Stevens looks to the inside, three wide, nearly on the way into turn 1, but it's not going to happen. And Snell and Hobson running both wide on the way into turn 1, rubbing at panels. And Stevens looking everywhere which way to try and find a way on by both of these drivers, but just can't seem to get enough momentum to make that happen.
It's a proper top 5 battle for the win now, as slight lockups from Stevens and Howe. Howe running wide there, but Gregory Favell not able to take advantage. Damien Westbrook is starting to creep up onto the back of this train. Hobson again in the draft of Snell is going to move. He's not going to move to the inside. Coming into this right-hand hairpin under the bridge, which is the oval circuit here at Twin Ring Motegi. Everyone in a line, single file, as they make their way through the fast sweeping bends at the north end of the circuit. This is going to be tighter than ever, with Ben Snell running a bit deep and trying his best to stay ahead of Hobson here. As long as he can keep the inside for these hairpins, then that's going to be less of a chance that Hobbo is able to get by. And that's a nice straight line exit from Ben, as right on board with Brenton Hobson. You haven't got much of a view out of these trucks, and An aggressive move to the inside, trying to psych out the number 141, but Hobson's lunges not successful so far. Snell and Hobson each have 1 win apiece tonight, and if they keep like this, it's going to be an outright battle between them for the round win. Meanwhile, in the background, Daniel Stevens going defensive, try and keep Justin Howe behind him, but doesn't look like there's much threat of a move there for the time being. Oh, have a look at this meanwhile. Ryan Jones making his way past Philip Howe in the braking zone, and Howie having to gather it up there, so Jones is finally ahead. And unfortunate for Ryan Jones with that contact from Damian Westbrook on the first lap. He's going to have to work really hard to get himself up to this lead pack as Howe, Justin that is, up the inside of Daniel Stevens into the first turn. Can Daniel hold it round the outside? No, he cannot. So Justin Howe then up into 3rd place, but again, that battling has given Snell and Hobson quite the gap to play with. Oh, have a look at Stevens, firing it up the inside again. Howe saw him coming there, and he has to open the steering slightly, so Stevens has gotten up his inside. Can Howe hold it round the outside? Manages to keep 2 wheels on the racetrack. Loving this battle for 3rd place, because have a look at Gregory Favell. He's been threatening to go for it. Oh, big hit there for Daniel Stevens on Justin Howe. That has sent Justin wide and into the grass, and Daniel moves on past.
It was nearly ended in tears, and much worse for both of those drivers, as that's very close between the two of them at the moment, and still side by side on the way through the back end of the circuit, and just now it's going to end up coming away with that position. Or is he, as Stevens still persisting side by side and around the outside on the way through here, and he's trying his best to hold on, and Favell's stuck with nowhere to go, and this is allowing Damian Westbrook to also come into this battle as well.
Indeed it is. It's a 4-way battle now for 3rd on back as Stevens sneaks up the inside of Howe in the hairpin. Justin, though, on the outside is going to have a straighter exit. It seems that Daniel Stevens was a bit more successful in getting off the corner, though. So stays ahead, but only just as, meanwhile, up the front, Brenton Hobson going for the move for the lead on Ben Snell, makes his way past. Can Snell go for the over-under? Contact once again. Snell having to go all the way to the wall there. And Brenton Hobson moves back ahead coming into the final couple of turns. So at the moment, Hobson has the round win in sight as side by side again between Stevens and Howe, with Justin taking a great exit out of the final turn round the outside. And Stevens now going to have to slot in behind and look for a defense versus Gregory Favell. Have a look at Damian Westbrook getting his nose in there. Oh, Howe has run wide, and Stevens again tries up the inside, but it seems that the outside line is the place to be there in the first couple turns.
It certainly does appear to be the place as Stevens looks to the inside of Justin Howe, but not quite going to be close enough to get the move done. But Howe runs a little bit wide, and that's going to allow Stevens back up the inside on the way through turn 4, and it's looking like it's only just going to have worked, as they're going to drag race on the way down towards turn 5. Favell nearly looked to the inside to force 3 wide, but decided to think better of it, and Stevens holding the outside once again on the way through turn 5, and is going to have the momentum on his side, but Howe's going to have the preferred line on the way through turn 6 as they head up the hill now, and Favell still looking, is going to look to the outside, nearly 3 wide. A little bit of contact between Favell and Howe, and Howe's going to run wide. Now Westbrook's going to slot on by as well and be in to try and get past Daniel Stevens.
So Westbrook up to 4th place now, gaining those 2 positions when Howe and Favell came together. Let's see if he has what it takes, as Stevens ran a bit deep into the left-hand hairpin. And Justin Howe almost making his way through there as well, but had to compromise himself. So now Westbrook with the wide line into the hairpin gets shoved out of the way by Daniel Stevens. No, this is my corner. You can't have it. So this is where the battling is at the moment. Snell and Hobson still keeping each other honest up at the front of the field, but seriously, this battle is crazy at the moment. Stevens holds on to 3rd, and oh, there's contact between all 3 of them. Let's see how Favell can take advantage of this one. He's got the inside line versus Justin Howe into the last couple of corners, but Howe moves past round the outside, all the way through to the grass on the inside of the final turn to try and get a run on Damien Westbrook. And he's going to have the inside line for turn 1, but as we said just a lap before, you don't really want to be on the inside into the first couple turns here. And Westbrook just gets shoved into Daniel Stevens there. Westbrook moved to the inside, I think, a bit too early as, between Howe and Stevens, side by side and contact. And, I mean, it's really typical for the Pro Truck Showdown, this kind of crazy racing. Let's see if Stevens can hold on here. Howe tries round the outside, goes a bit too deep off the circuit, and all three of the drivers, Howe, Westbrook and Favell, having to almost come to a complete stop. You know who this is bringing into play? The guy just coming into the back of the frame now, Ryan Jones.
What's up? It is bringing him into this battle for the podium positions, and with the way it's going, he's going to be there within at least half a lap or so, and Howe runs wide on the way through turn 5, and that's going to bring him back into the clutches of Westbrook. He's going to look to the inside, not quite going to be able to get that done though, and it's going to have to slot back in behind. So these four certainly not giving it up at all as Favell throws it and super hard on Westbrook, not quite able to make it stick though as well. And Jones still continuing to close that gap down in the background.
Well, let's see if Ryan Jones can throw a spanner into the works. And that number 11, he's certainly going to now, because Westbrook and Howe made big contact into the hairpin. Westbrook again with those aggressive moves up the inside, and Westbrook making side-by-side contact with Gregory Favell. That sent Gregory Favell back a bit, and now Ryan Jones is right in this. Runs a bit wide through the hairpin, but that's okay. He can take advantage of the straight line on the exit. So now Justin Howe moves ahead of Damien Westbrook with that outside line through the right-hander. Let's see if Westbrook is going to force one up the inside down here. No, he's not. Justin Howe going majorly defensive. He knows how to race here against Westbrook as, oh my goodness, rear end lock up, and oh no, Gregory Favell turning himself around, getting collected by Ryan Jones. Well, that's one position for Ryan.
Certainly is, and not how we would have hoped for that battle to end up eventually coming to an end, unfortunately. So that's going to spread those drivers out. But back at the front of the field, Hobson and Snell have been toe-to-toe all race long and have been swapping positions every now and then as well. So to see what's going to happen between these two. Hobson finally in the lead of this race as well after having started on the pole and then managing to get his way back on by Ben Snell. But Snell's certainly not letting Hobson get away at all here.
No, he's not. That lead battle is where it's at the moment now. Everyone else has a good amount of space between them. We'll keep an eye out for Ryan Jones when he gets up to Damien Westbrook, see if he can move past into 5th place. But for the time being, that's not going to happen. The gap, 1.2 seconds to Damien Westbrook. Let's see how quickly he can make that up. But Snell and Hobson up at the front of the field. Snell is just hounding the rear bumper of Hobson like nothing else. And these two both experienced racers in this series and being very respectful with each other as well. Yeah, there have been some slight dings and bits of contact, but they've been able to keep it very clean for the most part, which is the kind of racing that we want to see.
Is kind of racing that we want to see. Is a little bit of a tap there from Ben Snell to the back bumper of Brenton Hobson to just give him a little bit of a, hey, I'm here and ready to pounce whenever you let that door open. So certainly going to be a very, very tough fight between these two as they're going to have 3 to go this time by across the line. But you cannot, I don't think you're going to be able to predict who's going to be able to win this race because of those two being so close.
Yeah, they've been pressuring each other beautifully all night and keeping each other very honest. Snell with a bit of oversteer on the edge of the final corner. Not able to get an advantage on Brenton Hobson down the start-finish straight as they come around to start lap 7. 3 to go here. And nice smooth entries into the first turn. As we check back in on the battle for 3rd place back. Ryan Jones has made up 7/10 now on Damien Westbrook and is right on it, almost on his rear bumper, coming into the first couple turns. Running very wide between turn 1 and 2 was Westbrook, which allowed Jones to get up to his inside. Now, let's see if any big moves are made in these next few heavy braking zones. Jones stays behind for the time being, carrying a little bit of damage on the front of his truck and has to back out there because Westbrook running wide on the exit of turn 3. But I reckon a move is going to happen sooner rather than later, especially for the couple of positions up ahead, because Daniel Stevens and Justin Howe continuing to fight amongst themselves.
They are starting to fight quite hard, and so are these two at the front of the field as well. Hobson and Snell certainly not letting each other get away from each other. And that battle for third, like you said, certainly starting to heat up a little bit more now that Howe's just got onto the back of it. Daniel Stevens in the last lap also was a little bit more spread out, but Howe has clearly found a little something in these recent few laps to have some very, very nice pace in relation to Daniel Stevens. It's quicker than last time by as well, so certainly has got some very, very nice pace at the moment, does Justin Howe.
Oh, look at the weaving down the back straight here from Brenton Hobson, trying to break the draft of Ben Snell, but looks like Snell's not having any of it. He knows that all he has to do is keep himself within those few tenths of a second of Brenton Hobson's rear bumper, and he'll have a chance at taking the win here in race 3. Both of these guys fighting for their second win of the night, as there's Ryan Jones past Damien Westbrook at the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. Move completed, and Westbrook I don't think will be challenging him too much unless he makes a mistake, as once again Hobson and Snell bumper to bumper on the exit of the first couple turns. Justin Howe on the back of Daniel Stevens. Stevens is doing everything right at the moment, keeping Howie behind.
Is doing everything he needs to and everything he should be doing at the moment to keep Justin Howe behind. And they do have to be a little bit cautious though of Ryan Jones, who's not too far in the distance as well, so we might see that battle for third turn into a 3-car battle as Stevens has run a little bit wide on the way into turn 3, and that's going to have allowed Justin Howe to get on by as well.
All right, so now a truck length between third and fourth right now. Will Stevens try and get past once again towards the end of this lap? They're only going to have one lap to go when they cross the line next. Here's the virtual racing school replay of what happened down at turn 3. Daniel Stevens just locking the inside tyres and running a bit deep into turn 3, which allowed Justin Howe to just slip on by. Excellent observance there from our series organizer. But Hobson and Snell, no change between them. The battle is still as heated as it's ever been between these two guys. You get the feeling that Snell is just waiting to spring a move here on Hobson as the defensive line goes for the number 88. Snell follows him there in the draft. Only a couple of turns to go and we will be getting white flag.
Certainly is very, very much a case of whether Ben Snell is trying to set this one up and just being a little bit more patient. We've seen him do this sort of thing in the Aussie Car Skip Barbara series, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's using his experience in that to his advantage here to just sit in behind and make a move on the final lap of the race, which they have pretty much started it now, so we'll see what Ben Snell's going to do, whether he's going to be able to get the win here, or whether Hobson is going to get 2 wins and claim the round win. They're certainly very, very close, and Ben Snell is all over his tail.
Well then, final lap for our race leaders, and they are way ahead of everyone else at the moment. The fact that they've been able to keep up the pace they have while battling like this is really something. Nearly 14 seconds ahead of third place they are. But Snell's just a bit too far back on Hobson to make a move down at this hairpin. He's going to have to rely on a perfect run through the fast corners just coming up here. As Damien Westbrook behind Gregory Favell now. He's lost another position. and Westbrook trying around the outside and going very deep into the hairpin. Just had to back out of it in the middle of the corner and allow Favell back on by. So there we go, position gained for Gregory Favell. But Brenton Hobson, I think, has done enough here to stay ahead of Ben Snell. Snell, I think, just running out of tyre at the moment. He's been driving so hard throughout this race that it seems Brenton Hobson has been able to gap him just enough to make this potential race win work. So down the back straight they go for the final time. One more draft break from Brenton Hobson, but Ben Snell realizes that, you know, he doesn't need to stay in the draft here. He's got to rely on a mistake at the last couple of turns, but at the moment, it seems like Brenton Hobson is going to be the one coming away with the round win here. Only 2 turns to go, the chicane. And 1 turn to go and 0 turns to go. Nice exit from Brenton Hobson. Leaves 2 tyre trails out from the apex, taking win number 2 of the night and the round win here at Motegi, with Ben Snell taking a fine 2nd place. Justin Howe, having moved ahead of Daniel Stevens, is going to take 3rd place here. Ryan Jones is going to work his way back up into a 5th place spot after starting from 8th. And making the move nice and cleanly there on Damien Westbrook to get it done, with Westbrook's race unraveling at the end. So there we go. That is the end of racing in round 2 of Pro Truck Showdown Season 4. Hobson and Snell, 3 tenths between them, miles ahead of the battling pair, Justin Howe and Daniel Stevens. Jones and Favell 5th and 6th. Westbrook, Trezise, and looks like that was the final finisher of Brian Trezise in 8th place, because Philip Howe retired on, it seems, lap 2 from, I believe, maybe damage. And, of course, Dwayne Priest, Jack Flood, and Todd Maxfield not taking to the grid in this final race of the night. Well, Cam, that brings proceedings to an end. And Motegi, once again, turning it on, and a great track for racing in these trucks.
Yeah, it certainly has been a very, very good night of racing. And once again, Twin Ring Motegi turning it on in these machines very much so. So looking forward to seeing what next week is going to hold and where we are.
Indeed. The policy with Pro Truck Showdown is the track is not revealed until the day of the race. So we have no idea where we're going to race next. But we've had a good regular rotation of tracks throughout this series over the past couple of seasons, so we have some idea of where we might go, but who knows, might be somewhere completely different that we're not familiar with. We'll find out with you here on SimSpeed TV next Tuesday. Thanks very much to Scumander Coffee Mug and Hot Toddy's Heating Installs for your support of this series, and thank you very much for watching. I'm Reese Gardner, Cameron Dance alongside me in the commentary box, Ryan Jones making a couple of appearances here and there, and Jay Kennedy directing, making everything happen behind the scenes. Bye for now, but certainly not forever.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's going around the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?